Space Arena. Arena. SAGA Podcast.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Space Arena, Ground Arena, where we cover Star Wars Unlimited from the ground and up into space. I'm Banana Crapshoot. The rest of the gang's not here at the moment. Dan was unable to make it, and Mr. Ben's having power issues, so hopefully he joins us momentarily. But not here by myself. I have a very special guest with us tonight. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself for everyone?
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Like you said, I know Ben's having some issues with some power, but fortunately I was able to make it. My name's John Tatta, and everyone probably knows me by now from the Discord as TD Tatta. And yeah, just thrilled to be here.
Yeah, I'm super excited you agreed to join me for now tonight. So I'll just real quick, the first time I saw your name was probably like 2020. It was during COVID. Mr. Ben had sucked me into Versus System 2 PCG. And I was looking up videos, like I just searched Versus System 2 PCG gameplay, and then like matches of yours like showed up. So that's really, because I wasn't a big card gamer earlier in life. That's more like a later in life thing for me. So
Yeah, that game was really great, and it still is great. It's still ongoing. It's funny, the matches you probably watched were the ones, it was probably the World Championships from like 2020 or 2021, that Gen Con. I think I got second place in that one, but I probably had a filmed match several times in that event. So
yeah,
funny.
I think it was Gen Con.
Mm-hmm.
So real quick, just ask you some quick questions so the two listeners we have can get to know you a little bit more. Thanks, Mom. So first up, what's like your history with Star Wars?
Mm-hmm.
Did you grow up with Star Wars? Big fan, or is it the card game that's bringing you into it?
So I grew up with Star Wars, really. I've always been a fan of Star Wars. What really drew me into the whole universe even more was when I was younger. I think it was probably the mid to late 90s is when the Decipher Star Wars game came out, card game. And I was playing Magic at the time. I was young. I was probably 13 at the time. So this had to have been like mid 90s. And I got really big into the Star Wars card game. It was just, coming from Magic being the only game that I ever played up to that point, it was just something very different. And being Star Wars, I jumped right into it and just fell in love with it. And from there, I just kept growing with the IP, all the movies, all the shows over the years. And then I jumped into like Destiny. Prior to that, it was like the Wizards of the Coast Star Wars game they had with the dice. And then even the LCGs that Fantasy Flight had over the years, I think they had 2 different ones. I've lost count at this point, but I've probably played every variation of Star Wars card games, and I've just loved them all.
What about the Clone Wars Adventures card game that I think was mass retail only?
That one I am not familiar with, so I think you got me there. But I did play Young Jedi. That's probably one that's not too popular among the fans. But yeah, the Clone Wars one, I can't claim that I've played that one.
I'm pretty sure that one like only went to mass retail, and I don't think it did very well. So then, who's your favorite Star Wars character?
My favorite Star Wars character, man, that's a tough question. So I'm gonna have to say Grand Admiral Thrawn. And I know that's probably a lot of people's favorites, at least according to the Discord. But I fell in love with Thrawn years ago when I read Heir to the Empire, very popular book. And it's not canon anymore, unfortunately. But I just fell in love with the Thrawn character. And then even the newer Thrawn books that are canon now are very, very good. And it's just, everything about Thrawn I've always loved. Prior to that, I mean, Darth Maul, I've always been a big Darth Maul fan. So I guess you can say I kind of gravitate to like dark side characters. But yeah, I mean, Thrawn's been a pretty big favorite of mine.
Do you have a favorite film?
Mm, None of the new ones, I can tell you that. Like all
No.
of the Disney stuff has been just okay. But I think Empire Strikes Back has got to be one of my all-time favorite films. So it's definitely my favorite Star Wars film.
Cool. So now that people kind of have an idea of your history with Star Wars, what about your history with card games?
Yeah. That's a long history. So similar, I know that you had Mike Jim on the show a few weeks ago. My history is actually pretty much identical to his. We actually played a lot of the same games at the same times. We're around the same age, but like mid '90s, Magic. I was just a kid, like 12, 13 years old. I jumped into Magic like from the first set. I think it was maybe beta or unlimited. So like I played Magic right away. And then from there, like I mentioned, I went to the Star Wars game from Decipher. I stuck with Decipher for a while and played like Lord of the Rings, some of their games that they ran. Uh, from there, went to like Versus System in the early 2000s. Played Versus System, the first one, the World of Warcraft card game, the second Versus System, some smaller games that three people have ever heard of. And then probably after that, COVID hit and started playing card games from Bandai, like the more anime based games. So that was my last foray into card games. And then now we've moved from Bandai games to back to Fantasy Flight Games, who I played previously with the Game of Thrones card game, some of their LCGs I played. So now we're at Star Wars again, which is pretty much where we belong the whole time. So I'm pretty excited for this one.
So what was it initially that got you excited about Star Wars Unlimited? Was it just that it's a new Star Wars card game, or was it like some of the mechanics? Like the game was announced in May, right? So
Mm-hmm.
like at what point did you jump on the Unlimited
Yeah.
hype train?
So when the game was announced, I was excited for it, but not like ready to really jump into everything that they were doing, like preview cards and things like that. I didn't even read the rules until like probably around Christmas time. I've been playing Battle Spirit Saga by Bandai, at a pretty high level over the last year or so. That kind of took a lot of my time. And then when that game started to slow down a bit, I was like, well, I think it's time to read the rules and start, playing Star Wars. And because I was always going to play, I just didn't have the time. So around Christmas time, I read the rules, and then some of my old teammates from Dragon Ball, Zuhair Galaxy on Discord, a few other players, um, they're like, "Hey, do you want to start playing some games?" So I think about a month ago, right after Christmas, so it was like the first week of January, we just started to start playing games. Probably several hours a day at first. Now it's slowed down a bit, but it's been great. So I'm very excited, but only in the last month or so was when I really got big into it.
What do you think Star Wars Unlimited can offer like the TCG space right now that like other games aren't offering?
Just a really unique game. It's really refreshing to see a game go out of the box a little bit. For me, a lot of the games I've played over the last like 5 to 10 years have all been almost cookie cutter copies of each other. Like all the Bandai games use like life cards from the top of your deck. Like that's just like their thing.
Mm-hmm.
Games like Magic and Force of Will, things like that. They just use like a mana system of like resources that are in your deck already. And like that's just been kind of played out. And just all these games have just been not bad, but just I feel like I've played the same game for 20, 25 years, just in a different way with a different skin. And Star Wars, it just kind of brings something unique and refreshing with the alternating actions, with the way that you use your resource system, the multiple lanes. So it's just really just like a breath of fresh air to the gaming world. And I think once other people kind of catch on to what they're doing, um, it'll just keep growing and growing. I think right now the game is kind of a hidden secret. I'm teaching new people every day that had no idea that this game even existed. And I'm not saying that's Fantasy Flight Games' fault because they're doing great, but I think they really need to get out there and just kind of show more people the game, because it's one of the best games I've ever played. And it's, I think the way that they're doing organized play is really smart. So I think when that really gets into high gear, it'll probably bring more players in as well.
So you mentioned organized play. There's two tiers of organized play that they've laid out: the casual tier and the competitive tier. I'm guessing you're gonna fall more into the competitive tier. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm I'm pretty fortunate to where I can travel to pretty much everything. So, and I've always been a pretty competitive player by nature. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. But I always tell people, like, as I've gotten older, I've kind of been playing more casually as well. So, like 10 years ago, me would see Twin Suns and be like, okay, I'm never playing that ever. Because like I would always focus on like the hardcore, like, when's the next national championship, or, something like that. But now it's like, okay, Twin Suns looks awesome. Let's just play it all the time. So it's just kind of a weird shift in mindset. But naturally, I will still play on the more competitive side, but I'm also looking forward to the casual stuff as well.
So of the leaders right now, we know all 18 leaders. Which 2 or 3 are you most excited to actually open up and play with?
Yeah, I think Leia is one. Of course, Luke, but that's something that you just get in the starter deck. But the my favorite decks that I've played have been Palpatine and Leia, for the most part. Krennic I like a lot as well, but those are just the ones that I kind of gravitate to. Like, Leia is the one that I've played the most, so naturally that's probably what I'm going to play right out of the gate. But I just really like the play style. She's kind of up tempo, faster paced, being able to cheat the action system by attacking with multiple units at the same time. So I really like her. And then Palpatine's just great. Like his flavor is awesome. Being able to gain control of a unit. Um, so he's been really fun to play as well.
Do you think that what is it about Leia and Palpatine that you gravitate to?
I think just their play styles. Leia is, well, I mean, I guess Sabine is the most aggressive leader, but Leia is like right up there, and I've just always kind of been like a closet, like, aggro player, I guess. Like I played Control for years and years and years in Magic, and like I just got tired of it. So lately, it's like I'm playing these faster decks. I just want to end the game as fast as possible so I can get up and my back will stop hurting. So, uh, but yeah, Leia's been great. And then on the Palpatine side, that kind of just plays into the decks that I'm used to playing over the years from Magic and Versus System. It's just these slower, grindy control decks that just take options away from your opponent. But that's just been, they've been fun to play. I mean, every leader's been fun to play. Like, this game is just that great. I don't think that there's a big disparity between the very tip top leaders like Boba Fett, Leia, Sabine, and like the bottom tier leaders, whoever you would consider bottom tier. Other than IG-88, he's awful, but I think everything else is like, you know, pretty well balanced.
Do you think that we'll just start with Leia since that was the one that like I know you played a bunch and I've seen you talk about on Discord. Um, do you think her play style is like extremely linear, or do you think it's very nuanced and rewards like in my mind, Leia is very good and really rewards good sequencing.
Yes, that is the main thing, and you actually kind of hit it right on the head there. Is that she's a deck where if you sequence properly, you will probably win most of your games. And she's actually the deck that I give to most new players that I teach the game to, who are better players from other card games. I'm like, hey, look, here's a good deck. Let's play the game. And I just try to teach them proper sequencing right away, because if you can learn sequencing in this game, it'll go a long way into playing other decks as well. But Leia is incredible at that. It's very, very rewarding to sequence correctly. I mean, that's the best way to put it.
Talking about sequencing a little bit, just to extrapolate on that. The I take an action, you take an action system. I think really makes it so you have to learn how to sequence properly to be successful. Did you have any issues adjusting to that system and the sequencing, or was it just that you've had so much experience with other games, it's just instead of sequencing your whole turn at once, you're breaking it up over time?
Yeah, I mean, it was a small change. I've played games that are similar, like the old Versus system. It was a lot of back and forth like that with the sequencing, and like the formations and stuff. I played the Elder Scrolls Legends online card game, which had the multiple lanes or battle arenas. So that wasn't so much of a big change for me. But I've played card games for so long; it's really hard to throw something new at me. So it's learning it was a small curve, but once I learned it, it was like riding a bike. As I played very similar games, and it wasn't that hard to get used to it.
Cool. Would you have any like advice for a player that is struggling with like proper sequencing, other than
Yeah, I
like
mean,
play more?
like, yeah, well, yeah, playing more is always good, but it's like slow down. Like, don't feel like you have to play quickly right away. Think about what the best action is at the time. I see so many people, um, on like YouTube or just watching random TTS games, uh, that they they try to play their cards first and then make their attacks, or they'll try to play something that they can play later in the turn, or they'll take initiative when they shouldn't, or not take it when they should, just things like that. And it's just like the main thing is to just slow down and just try to think about what the best thing to do is at any given point. It's use your cards that you already have in play before you use the cards in your hand. Just things like that really go a long way to learning the system and just learning proper sequencing.
What mechanically stands out about Star Wars Unlimited compared to other games you played recently?
So the two lane system is the main thing, right? I mean, there hasn't been, to my knowledge, a game in cardboard form, like actual paper form, that has like a battle arena on two different places, right? I mean, every game is like, here's the battle arena, you attack with your units, creatures, troops, whatever, and you play the game. So Star Wars, I just, adding that extra element of here's the space arena, or here's the ground arena.
Shout out.
Yep, there you go. Yep, not even on purpose, but it just adds like that extra element to the game, and I think that's the main drawing point for me. Is like, hey, here's this cool system. Figure out how to best utilize the two arenas. And it's been really fun building decks that try to do that. I've experimented with decks that go all space. I've played decks that go like no space. Just trying to figure out what the best way is to kind of approach the system. It's also really cool that you start with 2 resources instead of 1. So it feels like you're thrown right into the battle right away, right? You're already playing 2 drops and 3 drops on turn 1 and 2. And whereas other games, it's like you're spending your first 1, 2, 3 turns, like, starting your strategy or what your deck is built to do. In Star Wars, it's like right away, plus drawing 2 cards a turn, like right away you're getting into, hey, like we're getting serious, like turn 2.
Right.
So that's great.
I think the only other game I can think of off the top of my head that you can kind of get that like in the action quick is Final Fantasy, just because of how that resource system works. You could, if you wanted to, dump your hand and play a bomb,
right?
And Versus System 2PCG is probably the closest thing to Star Wars Unlimited with the arenas, but it's different, right? Because you have the front row and the back row.
Yeah,
it's not
there's
the
like
same.
a hidden area and then like a visible area and like things like that. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good call out. For sure. But yeah, this game does it in a way that's really unique though, so it's been great.
And you're experimenting with all space, no space. What was your conclusion?
So this was before the latest batch of preview cards, but like 2 weeks ago, I started playing like some Han decks or even some Leia decks that, just went like all space early. Like the A-Wing, like Han played Falcon, of course. Like Red 3, and the results were actually surprisingly really good. The Han deck, especially because you can play the event card that can exhaust all the units in one arena. I forget what it's called.
Outmaneuver.
Yeah, there you go. It was really, really good. And I was beating Boba Fett like almost every time with it. So I thought that the deck was really good. But then I played against Sabine with it, and like the games weren't even close. Like I was just getting crushed. So I'm like, well, maybe this deck isn't like ideal. And then I was going to revisit it once the whole set was previewed. So I still need to do that, but I think that there's probably a few cards that came out, like Bombing Run is a really good card against that kind of strategy, because most of the ships have low health, so Bombing Run kind of just takes them out. There's a few other cards that might hinder that strategy, but for the most part, I think a deck like that is possible. I don't know if it's possible in set 1 because Green didn't get a cheap ship that it really needed, but the deck was cool. It was fun. Yeah, I liked it.
I will say, Bombing Run is ridiculous in Twin Suns.
I'm sure it is. Yeah,
and so is Outmaneuver. Those because they hit everything.
Yeah, I was gonna say they hit every player, right? Yeah.
Shout out to FFG for how they worded a bunch of these cards to work in multiplayer, because it's disgusting how some of this played out. Playing Twin Suns with Sabine, who deals damage to every base. Bombing Run, that deals damage to everything in that arena. It doesn't matter how many players. For Surrender, the 6-drop that was revealed over the weekend. You draw 2 cards, and everyone that you dealt damage to, their base, they have to discard 2 cards. I pulled that off with Sabine once.
Yeah, so with Sabine, you can kind of do that. Yeah, I mean that's interesting. I haven't looked at too many cards that would be good in Twin Suns yet, since the event over the weekend, and all the rest of the cards were previewed. I've only been able to play just regular standard constructed games. But once I start building some Twin Suns decks, I'll be looking for interactions like that. It's also really cool that they have very obviously made cards that were meant for Twin Suns, like the card that you just mentioned, like for Surrender. That's probably a card that's more or less meant for Twin Suns rather than like a regular, standard deck. Not that it couldn't be played in that, but it shines more in like a multiplayer format. I think there's a lot of cards like that where you can look at them at first and be like, this card's not that good. But then when you look at other formats like Draft, Twin Suns, you're like, okay, this card is very obviously meant for that. So that's really great, and I think that the first set is designed incredibly well. I'm actually really impressed with how well the first set's designed. I know that they worked on it for quite a while, and it definitely shows.
Yeah, I agree. And they said early on, like, we designed this game from day one with multiplayer and limited format in mind.
Yep.
That's why they were adamant that they wanted 16 card booster pack to support sealed and draft. And you can tell by the card designs too, like the way commons are like actually, decent cards and not just garbage.
Yeah.
And just the way things are worded to work with multiplayer, that they really took the time to do it right, I feel.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
I'm completely blown away, like, from dealing with FFG during Destiny and going through all that to how they're doing now, and then the community event over the weekend, like the whole thing. I'm just completely blown away by like FFG as a whole right now. So,
yeah, no, I am too. That's a great point because I played so many of their LCGs that just ended so like abruptly with no warning. Like I played the Game of Thrones card game, and then they killed it off and relaunched a second, Game of Thrones card game like immediately. And I played that one too. And once again, it just ended abruptly. And I know, a lot of us played Destiny and know how that went. So a lot of people, including me, were like not very high on Fantasy Flight coming into this game. So seeing everything that they're doing, like, that should really encourage anyone, players, store owners, whoever, to give them, a second chance. Like, it's almost an entirely new team for the most part. I know they have a new CEO. They have a lot of people in different spots now in the company. And it's really encouraging from a player perspective to see all the improvements that they've made over the years, because let me tell you, like 6, 7, 8 years ago, it was not super positive. So this is pretty great.
Just curious, do you know how many, the most recent game you played competitive was like Battle Spirit? Do you know how many designers Bandai has working on that? Like,
not very many. Yeah, I mean, I don't know like an exact number, but I know that their team is pretty small.
Is it the same thing for like One Piece? Like, are they all like small teams?
Yeah, they're all pretty small teams.
How many people do you think roughly?
I mean, it's not like low double digits probably for each game. Like Battle Spirits, they might have like half a dozen people that work on the game. One Piece is probably, I don't know, 15, 20 people, but it's not like they have like hundreds of people or dozens of people working on these games.
Bandai also puts out like a ridiculous amount of sets and product each year, right? Between booster sets, draft sets, supplemental sets, gift sets. Like,
yeah, they're a Japanese company. I feel like their marketing team is probably bigger than like their actual like development teams. But yeah, they're kind of a weird company. I mean, don't quote me on how many people are on these teams, but I can tell you for sure that it's for games like Battle Spirits, especially, the teams are not very big at all.
So back to more actual Star Wars Unlimited. What does your deck building process look like for Star Wars Unlimited? Did you start with a leader? Did you start with a concept?
Yeah, Usually it's starting with a concept. A lot of times I might start with a single card and then figure out like who the best leader is to play this card. Lately for me, it's been the U-Wing reinforcements card. I've built like probably 10 different decks that just like, I'm like, all right, I know that I'm playing this card. So I put 3 of them in immediately and then try to figure out like which leader can do it best, right? So, I'll start 3 reinforcements and then I'll start figuring out what units that I want to play that would be most effective with that card. So like Fleet Lieutenant, Wing Leader, just cards like that, like Mon Mothma, things that do something when they come into play. And then
Akbar, is he one?
yeah. Akbar's always one. Yeah, he's great with that card. Cheap units like Fighters for Freedom with like A-Wing and things like that, because you can order the way that the units come into play. So the fighters will trigger like once or twice off of what you play off of the U-Wing card. So like Fighters plus K2 is really good. So I'll just try to figure out from there, like, okay, so a lot of the best cards are red and green. So it's like, well, then I can play Cassian or I can play like Leia. And then I built a couple blue-green decks with it, like Luke and even Churret, which were very good. Every deck I build with that card is good. Like that card is just good. But the standard deck building method I have is like, they usually start as concepts. Every leader in this game, more or less, does something unique, right? So if you want to build like a Voltron like Churret deck, it's like, okay, the concept is I want to load up my leader with all these cool upgrades. So you start with Churret and then you add the upgrades. And then I just make sure I have enough turn 1 plays. So I have like 10-ish turn 1 plays. I know people like to play 12, but I'm always fine with like 9 or 10, honestly. And then it's like, okay, I need 10 or so 3 drops, handful of 4 drops. And then the deck just kind of builds itself from there. You just pick cards that work toward your overall strategy or concept for the deck, right? So like Krennic decks, like it's like, okay, I want to try a Krennic deck with bombing run. So I just look at all the 4 defense or 4 toughness units that are in blue and red. So you end up with like Regional Governor, the Scout Bike Trooper, Fifth Brother, So just try to build like that for the most part.
So you built your deck. Now, how do you find out if it's any good? What's your playtest process? Like, you load that thing up in Felt Table and win 100 games against the AI, or like
No, so usually now the force table thing is cool. I mean, I have played with that and it's been fun. But after playing with it like maybe 10 games, I've realized that it's probably not the best gauge for seeing like if something works or not, right? So fortunately, I've been involved with like teams over the years and I have made friends through that, and most of them are either wanting to play this game or already play it. So Zuhair Galaxy in the Discord and I play almost every day. So usually we'll just talk on Discord or through Messenger about a deck. We'll build it and then we'll just jump right in and play, I don't know, 10, 15 games with it just to see how it plays. Usually we won't play a deck against Boba Fett right away because, like a lot of times I think a lot of decks wouldn't make it out of phase 1 if we just played against Boba Fett. So we'll play it against like, I don't know, like Leia or Sabine just to see how it does against aggro, and then we'll play it against like Vader or Iden to see how it does against control. And then if the deck feels like it's good, then we'll start playing games against like, Boba Fett and, some more mid-range decks that are pretty solid. But the philosophy is just build something, you know, come up with a concept, build it, and then just immediately start jamming, pretty much everything into it.
What do you think the value of, you mentioned teams, like what's the value in that on like getting on a team,
Yeah, I mean the main thing is having people to play with all the time. But, just making a team just for the sake of having a team doesn't really do you any good. Um, but the best thing that I can recommend is find people who are better than you and play with them as much as possible. There's a lot of players in Discord that play games against whoever. I mean, Tower number nine's one, like he'll play against whoever. Um, I I would, but my time is like super limited, so I usually only try to play against like the people that I know. Uh, but find someone who is better than you and play with them as much as you can, because that's the only way that you can ever learn. And that's the biggest benefit of a team is that, you have all these players who are probably pretty good, uh, and they play all the time, and that's just the biggest perk, I would say.
Star Wars Unlimited, you have a big event coming up next week. What's the deck you're taking?
At present time, I would say if the event is like in 4 days from now, I'd probably just bring Leia. It'd probably be this Leia U-wing deck that I've been playing a lot and working on. It's basically like a toolbox deck. It probably plays like 8 1-ofs, and it's just try the toolbox into uh, like the most powerful plays that you can possibly make. It's I I love Leia. It's such a fun deck. I feel like I've learned to sequence pretty well in this game, and she is just really pretty rewarding for doing so. And the U-wing card just kind of gives it just an added angle that it didn't previously have. Previously, if you just would remove most of Leia's units to kind of neuter her, main like action cheating ability, you can kind of slow her down or shut her down. But the U-wing reinforcements just adds an extra like dimension to it, to where now you can't really do that, because once she gets 7 resources, you can just play 3 more units, and it's almost impossible to get rid of all of them in one turn. So it's that plus the new 6 cost assault pod. I don't know what the actual name of the card is, but I basically call it like the hero fire spray, because that's pretty much what it is.
Yeah.
But that gives pretty much any hero deck just an extra way to win the game. So I've been pretty high on green hero since the very beginning, and these cards keep coming out that boost it. So I would say either red Leia or green Luke would be the 2 decks that I would bring to any major tournament right away.
So the card you were talking about was the Gorilla Attack Pod.
Yes.
It's a 4 power, 6 health Rebel vehicle walker with grit, and it has a when played ability. If it bases 15 or more damage on it, ready this unit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's basically fire spray for the hero decks. I mean, that's the best way to put it. It's very, 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 very good.
How many boxes are you in for in step 1?
So I have pre-ordered and traded for and whatever else 60 boxes. So 10 cases.
You're gonna do that every set, or just set 1 and see how
will
it goes?
very most definitely not do that for every set. So about what is today? Today's the 13th, so this would have been about 3 weeks ago in California was the Battle Spirit Saga World Championships. First place was $50,000. They had a $250,000 prize pool. It was a crazy event, and I did very well in it. I didn't win, but I did very well in it. So from the $10,000 that I won, I just basically siphoned like half of it into Star Wars. So I'm like, you know what? This is probably a good investment for at least set one. I was like, let's just go for it. So I pre-ordered quite a bit of set one, and I don't expect to keep that up in the future, but who knows? We'll see.
Set 2 planetary qualifiers open up. You can start getting points to qualify for Worlds. You can win a planetary and get a buy, right?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly their like tier structure of like points. I know that like the winner is just guaranteed like, hey, I qualify for Worlds. I know that their first World Championships is an open event, but in the grand scheme of things overall, yeah, winning a planetary qualifier gives you enough points to qualify for Worlds.
Say there's 20 planetary qualifiers in the United States
Yes.
for set 2. How many are you going to?
I would like to say 20, but I know there's no way I can do all of them. I have no trouble like flying like a reasonable distance to an event. Like I live pretty close to a major airport. As long as it's not like across the country, I don't mind flying somewhere to play in one of these. I also live just a bit south of Pittsburgh, so I know that area will probably get one anyway, like to Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, like somewhere in Pennsylvania, that area will probably have a planetary qualifier. So I know that's one I can go to for sure. And then, like, if there's one in Vegas, I might go to it just because it's Vegas. But yeah, I mean, for a safe number, let's just say 3. Like, I plan to play in 3 planetary qualifiers. If there is a leaderboard up by then, and these events are giving points towards like some kind of leaderboard, then I will probably play in more than 3. But that's where my head's at now.
What's the most broken thing you found in Star Wars Unlimited so far?
Probably U-wing reinforcements. I mean, that card is probably the most broken thing you can possibly do in this game, and I think that people probably haven't discovered like the most broken things you can do with it. I don't even know if I have yet, but there's just a lot of things you can do. You can play like off aspect cards at no penalty with it. You can play, um, 3 cards in one turn that might combo together. Like I played one game against Zuhair the other day where it's like I played U-wing reinforcement. All I had in play was like maybe a battlefield marine, and he had like seven health left or something. But what I did was I played that and got wing leader, fleet lieutenant, and some random 1-drop, and like I just killed him just from playing wing leader first, and then the fleet, and then attacking him for 7. And it's just there's so many things you can do with that card that just break the rules of the game. And anytime, like, I think the most powerful thing you can do in Star Wars is cheat the action system, which is why I like Leia so much. And anytime a card comes out that cheats the action system, it's just going to be busted inherently. And the U-wing card just does that. Like it lets you take 3 like actions worth of actions with 1 card. So that's really hard to overlook. So that card is probably the most broken thing you can do. Other than that, like prior to that, it was like mono yellow Boba Fett with cunning. Like cunning is like probably the second most broken card in the game, in a vacuum, because the things that it does again just abuses the game's core mechanics. being able to just exhaust two of your opponent's units or bounce another one, it's just cheating, inherently. So
that's what yellow's about.
Yep.
What
So that's probably the most broken stuff.
And now you can play Cunning for 3.
Yep, you can.
With Bib.
I have that deck built, but I haven't been able to play it yet. I just built it this morning, so we'll see how it goes.
Bib Fortuna. What do you think about Bib Fortuna, Barbara?
I love it. It's just another one of those cards that kind of cheats the core of the game. It allows you to play Cunning for 3 in a double Cunning deck. You can play it for 5 in like a green yellow Boba deck. You can play like off aspect stuff for 1 extra instead of 2. So we'll see where it lands, but it's just another card that you can kind of play around with and figure out the best use for it.
So, in my many games of Twin Suns this weekend, the one guy, main deck Dan, shout out the main deck game. He played Boba Iden with a red base. So then anytime a unit was defeated, he was getting health and resources. And it was annoying as crap when he had Bib out there because like bombing run for 4 and like outmaneuver for, anything 1 left. It was just super annoying.
Yeah.
And there's a lot less removal overall in the Singleton format. So that was pretty disgusting.
Yeah, I'm super excited to really start playing the Singleton format. I'm a big fan of Cube Draft, and Cube Draft is basically drafting with like singletons, right? Like you have a brick of cards that are just one-ofs of every card in the game, basically, for set 1 anyway. And I think Twin Suns is basically just like constructed Cube Draft, basically, where it's like you just take all these really cool one-ofs and put them into a deck with 2 leaders and try to find the most fun or broken, if that's your goal, interactions that you can. And the format looks great. We were talking, I think, off the air, is that I haven't had a chance to play it yet, but I'm really, really looking forward to it.
It was a blast, and I like the little like subtle changes that make it different from Commander, right? Like the different counters and the way the end game triggers is like, one person's defeated and then you finish that phase and then the game ends. And then you just start another one right away. It's like by the time the first person's defeated, like you're starting your next game in like 5 minutes. Like
no, that's awesome. Yeah, because now it's like when someone gets knocked out, they're not just sitting watching the game for 20, 30 minutes, right? It's like, okay, like I'm knocked out, that sucks, but let's just play again. So
yeah, they're just shuffling up and getting ready for the next round. So.
Yeah. So they did a really good job of making it interactive. It's I can't say enough good things about all the different formats. Like even with just set 1, there's so many things you can do in this game, and it's been great.
You going to a pre-release event?
I am. Yeah, there's a few in the Pittsburgh area. Where I live in Morgantown, there's I think 1. So I'll probably end up doing 2 over the weekend. I'd like to do 3, but I don't think that's possible because I probably have to drive an hour each way to get to a third one. So probably just stick with 2. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to pre-release. Do you? Yeah. Oh, that was actually a question that he had. Was what is your favorite thing about Unlimited that makes it stand out to other games you played? I think we talked about that already.
Yeah.
And then, what are your top 3 strategy tips for players getting ready to go to pre-release?
Ooh, man.
Do you have any strategies for
players
sealed?
going to a pre-release? So sealed. I mean, making yourself familiar with the card pool is something you can start with. Just go on like the main site database or one of the other third-party databases and just learn the cards. that'll go a long way into trying to figure out, because it can be daunting for even like a new player, especially, to open up 6 packs and have like, what's that, like 80 cards sitting in front of them, right? So how do you build a deck from that pile of 80 cards? So first, learning the cards ahead of time helps, and then you know looking at the commons, especially because that's what you're going to have the most of. And then after you open your packs, it's just the leaders, right? Like you have 6 leaders in front of you, plus you have Luke and Vader for the pre-release, right? So
Yep.
I mean, that's a lot to really consider. So you should be able to play pretty much anything you want, but learning the card pool is the main thing. That'll help you, and not just sealed, but also draft and even constructed as well.
So I'm pretty sure you registered for a webcam.
Yes, yeah, I did.
What
I did that. I think the first day that you put it up, I signed up for it. I'm excited.
Just curious, like, what drew you to want to participate?
I've always really liked leagues. Like, they're just fun to like meet new players. Playing some games. It's always fun. I've never been much of a webcam gamer. I've always just preferred TTS. So I think this might actually be the first webcam league I've ever signed up for. So, I just wanted to try something new in that respect, and just really looking forward to playing against new people.
So we're happy to have you. What your team, right? True Duelist.
Mm-hmm.
How many of your team is in on Star Wars Unlimited?
I think at this point it's like 5. I think the team as a whole was probably like 8 or 9 people. I don't know how many of them are planning on playing Star Wars, but at the moment, we're at about 5 people. 2 or 3 of us play like often, like every day, and then the other 2 or 3 just kind of linger and watch, and just they're still learning. We're all coming off of Battle Spirits, which is a game that's pretty much just more or less wrapped up their competitive season 2 weeks ago. So we're all just kind of trickling in. So excited for Star Wars, and I think after the pre-release weekend, might get a few more from the group, deciding to play.
So I think we'll start winding it down here, but what you've been doing some content creation yourself for the game. Do you want to spend a few minutes letting people know what you're doing, where they can find you?
Yeah. So
what to expect.
Currently, I've just been making YouTube videos, just gameplay and deck building at the moment. Here in the near future, in fact, I've already, I think, finished one. I just have to edit it. Just doing like a top 5 cards of the set kind of deal. Maybe like I plan on doing something like most overrated cards of the set. And then I'll do, once the game like officially comes out, I'll be doing some sealed and draft content as well. Doing sealed and draft stuff before the set was fully spoiled kind of felt like a waste to me, so I didn't really bother. But now that the full set's out, I'll be doing some sealed and draft content as well. But you can find me on YouTube at, I believe the handle is TD_Tatta, TATTA. But I do stuff usually once a week, sometimes twice. I was sick last week, so I don't think anything done. But here, once the game releases, in about 3 more weeks now, yeah, there'll be a lot more content up.
I'll have that link in the show notes. I know most people probably know you from Discord, just for my own curiosity, since I helped moderate it. What are your thoughts on the pulse of the community in Discord, and like
Yeah, I mean, it's extremely positive. I can't say enough good things about the community as a whole right now. I mean, I can't even be like there's a few bad actors, because there's not. Like, as a whole, it's been great. Anyone who has come around and been overly negative has either already left the game or moved on to something else. But everyone is nice. Everyone is welcoming. So if anyone is nervous about joining Discord, there's really no need to be. There's very helpful people there. There's discussion every day, and it's been an A+ experience so far. As far as like we haven't even released the set yet, so for it to be this positive and this good before a game is even fully released is a pretty good sign, I think, for the future.
Real couple quick ones for me. Where do you stand on the art? Very divisive.
I am not a fan. Like I like a lot of it, but then there's a lot that I just don't like. I said this the other day in Discord though, is that art is like, as far as like the tier hierarchy goes of if I want to play a card game or not, art is like way down here, and organized play is like way up here. So if a game has good organized play and good mechanics, I don't care what the art is. Like it's very low priority for me. But there are like sparks of life in their art. Like a lot of it is really good. So I hope they take any feedback about the art seriously, and maybe in future sets, I'm sure they already have set 2 and 3 already already divvied out with artists, but hopefully in the future maybe they can up their game a little bit.
You mentioned a top 5 overrated cards in set 1, and the first thing that came to my mind was Traitorous.
Yeah.
Because I've seen the discussion on Discord, with you and Thork about Traitorous. So
yeah, that is my like number 1 most overrated card of the entire set. Like I don't think it's bad per se, but like it is not like it's not like an auto include in every green deck. That's for sure.
I agree. Yeah, I think that's all I got. You got anything for me, or
no? I mean,
anything else you want to say?
It was great to be here and talk about the game. I'm always happy to come on and blabber about the game as long as someone will listen. So, you mentioned 3 viewers, including your mom. I guess my mom can be added to that list as well now, and that's right, we're up. So it's
Yes.
yeah, it's been great. But you said that you went to the event last week, right? I don't know if you guys already talked about that a little bit, but do you want to talk about your experience at all?
Yeah, sure. I didn't talk about it in podcasts or anything. I've released like some videos and stuff from the event, but yeah. So I was lucky enough to be invited to the Star Wars Unlimited Community Celebration that FFG hosted at in Minneapolis. So got there, got to hang out with a bunch of other content creators. I know I'm not gonna name them all, but like Golden Dice, Unplayable, already Main Deck, Rolling Dice and Taking Names.
Yeah, Garbage Rollers, I think, were there too.
Garbage
right?
Rollers were there.
Yeah.
Tower Number 9 Davis was there. Ryback's son was there. There were so many. I know I'm missing some. Johto Cast, their crew was there. It was a great time being able to socialize and network and hang out with all these people we interact with on Discord but never get to meet. And then the event Saturday was just completely wild. It was held at Wisdom Gaming, which is a production esports studio, which is where they were casting from for their live stream. And then we were like in a section kind of behind the cameras, and everybody got like a swag bag that had a booster box, had the Gamegenic deck box, got my Hyperspace Boba Fett there.
Nice.
Got the Gamegenic tokens, 4 packs of sleeves, a booster box, a set of pins. I know people that love Penny Arcade are going to go wild over the pins.
Yeah.
So, and then we got to open 6 packs. We paid sealed, and then it was do whatever you want with the other pack. So I opened a bunch of them and filmed it. I saved 3 that I was going to do draft with, and then I got suckered into doing Twin Suns all night with Jodo Cast and Nelson all over cards and main deck. So we probably played, I don't know, 8 to 10 games of the Twin Suns over the course of Saturday night
Yeah.
into Sunday morning. So
Yeah. Great.
had a great time. I was completely blown away. They had dinner, they had a party for everybody. It was a huge celebration of the community. They planned this thing for 2 years, and Jim said he didn't know who was going to be there, but they knew that there was going to be something there. So they FFG from the top down. Just I'm completely blown away by everything. Everybody got a booster box and a 2-player starter. I knew we were going to do sealed, so I was expecting 9 packs, do sealed in a draft. Was not expecting a booster box. That was pretty wild. So huge thank you again to FFG. I've released some videos of pack openings, and I did a thank you video because I'm kind of shell shocked by the whole thing. But it was a super great experience, a once in a lifetime thing. Super thankful to be part of it. The whole team at FFG is awesome. Getting to meet a bunch of the designers, the newer designers that started working on the game for set 1. They were all there and interacting with them. Cool. And having people coming up like, "Oh, you're Banana Crapshoot." Like, that's wild to me. I'm just some dude.
Yeah.
And they're, "Oh yeah," it was a really cool experience.
Yeah.
So very thankful for that whole thing.
Awesome.
But yeah, so I think that'll wrap it up for this one. Sorry, Mr. Ben wasn't able to join us. His tower is still out. So for Space Arena, Ground Arena, I'm Banana Crapshoot, and
This is Tyler Parrott from FFG. We will see you in the arenas.